The fascinating thing about illustrated books, the great illustrated books, is that they can introduce audiences to things that they otherwise didn't know about it. Think about, for example, women's hats, and think about women's hats in the turn of the century, 1900, and how that was basically a status symbol. If you had a hat that had the different colored plumes or bigger plumes or whatever, and then you think about the birds that died for those feathers, something I've never thought about it, and that's a very coarse, curt way to phrase it. The book does a much better job of doing that. Harriet's Ruffled Feathers, the woman who saved millions of birds. It's a great book because it softly, and much more eloquently than I just phrased it, it softly captures the attention for young elementary school readers about the side effects of that. Yeah, it lets people know, that audience who otherwise wouldn't know, that back in the 1900s, the early 1900s, women in society's circles, they were judged by their hats. So if you had a hat that was more regal and had more plumes and more different colored plumes, you were of higher stature. And wow, look at you. I mean, think of it the way a peacock is. And you look at a peacock and you're like, that's a bird. Those other birds, they're just regular birds. The book, though, does a great job. Joy McCullough is one of our favorite illustrated book authors because she did a book on monster trucks years ago that our 10-year-old, when he was 3, he loved it, and he was either 3 or 4. So there are some authors like that as your children get older where you're like, okay, I remember that book that author wrote, and it kind of softens you up for all of them. But even if this is your first McCullough book, you're going to love it because it definitely tackles the subject without making anybody feel guilty. Because even those early elementary school audiences, they will know when they're being guilted, and they're not going to dig it. Or they're going to take that guilt out on you, either the educator or the parent, and say, well, why do you have a leather wallet, Dad? And that's not cool, because then you're like, that's actually pleather. It's not leather. And don't make fun of it, because I don't want leather. It sticks to my bottom in the summer. So I should have leather instead. It's going to lead to conversations like that. The illustrations in the book are by Romina Galata. And they're fabulous because they match the tone of the book so very well. And the book does such a great job that it encourages young readers, I'll say those middle elementary school to upper elementary school readers and up, to explore more on the topic. As such, it comes with a bibliography at the back, more about Harriet, more about the causes. Did you know that Harriet, you may not know this, Harriet was the root of the Audubon Society. Started up in the northeast of the United States, went from the northern parts to the southern part, and then across it. She dealt with presidents, about bird protection, and you learn all that from an illustrated book. You parents who think you can't learn anything from an illustrated book, check that out. And you kids, I'll say first, second, third, fourth, and even fifth grade, you'll love this book. Of course, you younger readers will need someone to read it to you, but you'll love the art. I can assure you, it may even make you think twice about where things come from. It is Harriet's Ruffled Feathers, the woman who saved millions of birds. And it's not just for those Captain Planet kids. Kids in elementary school will dig this book. Librarians, look for this because it may fly under your radar. It's Trey with Daddy Mojo.